Hello everyone, welcome back to the second video of object-oriented programming with Java. And in this video we are going to be writing our first Java program. And I'm not going to go into the installation of Java or writing a simple hello world or something. I'm directly going to jump into writing the complex class that we discussed a bit about in the theory video. And before that, I'd just like all of you to run this command in your terminal, java-version. And I'm using Windows right now, but all of this would work perfectly fine in a Linux-based machine as well. So if you get something like this, you have Java correctly installed in your machine. If you don't, I would recommend you watch some installation video and set up Java on your machine. So here's our documentation for the first class that we need to create. So it's a complex class and it has two fields, a private float real and a private float imaginary. So the private here is it's called an access specifier. So we have different access specifiers. The first one is private. There's another one called public, and there are others, but these are the ones that we are going to talk about right now. So the private specifier means that no other class has access to that method or variable, and public means that all other classes have access to that method or variable. So we have both private here, so other classes are not going to be able to access these two values. And next up we have the constructors. We've got three constructors here, one with no arguments which sets both to 0. We have one with just the real part as the argument which sets the real to this value and the imaginary to 0. And so this is basically just a real number and not a complex number effectively. And the third one we have is we've got both values and we need to set the set our fields to the received values here. And I'm just going to do one simple method, which is the print method, which prints the complex number in this form. So it's real plus imaginary I. So this is what I'm going to do, and I'm using Sublime as my text editor, but you could use anything you want. Atom is fine, Eclipse even better probably. So here I'm going to do a new file, and I'm just going to save this first as complex.java, and here I'm going to create the complex class with private float real and imaginary. And next we need to make our constructors. So here's a tip, always start with the biggest constructor first, so the one with the most arguments. There's a reason for that, and we'll see that while we write our program, but we should always write that one first. So I write public complex, and I have a float real here and a float imaginary as well. And I just need to do a this dot real equals real. Alright, so what this dot real does is the thing here is that I've got a real here as well and I've got a real here as well. So the class has a real attribute, and we're also passing a parameter called real. We're receiving it in something called a float real. So if I just write real, there might be a confusion. So always remember that just writing the variable name refers to the parameter that was passed, and this dot real refers to the one that belongs to the class. So I need to write this dot real. This one refers to this real right here, and this one refers to this real right here. And the same with this dot imaginary equals imaginary. So that's it for this constructor. Now I'm going to write the next constructor, which is this one, and here I've got a public complex, and I've just got a float real. Alright, so here's the thing. We can call constructors from within constructors by using the this keyword and parentheses. So what I could do here is something like this dot real equals real, but then I'd be repeating the code that I've already written here. So instead of doing that, I will do just a this, and I will pass it real comma 0 because I want the imaginary part to be set to 0. And that's it for this constructor. And the third constructor we have is a no arguments constructor. And here what I'll do is again call this constructor right here. So I'll just do a this and 0 comma 0. And this is why we define the largest constructor first, so that we could use the this keyword here. And it's a really good practice to always do that. So the next thing we need is a public void print, and to print in Java we use system.out.println, and inside this we need to print real. This time I don't need to write this dot real because there's going to be no confusion here. There's only one real that this could refer to, which is this one. So I will do a real plus a plus sign here, and the imaginary part, and an I here. That's all I need to do in the print method. And this class itself is ready, but for me to test out this class, I'll need another class. So I'm going to create that in another file. This one is going to be test.class. Also always remember that, sorry, test.java, and always remember that your class name and your file name should always be the same. So here I have class test, and inside this I need a main method. So if you've done programming in C or C++, you probably know that the main method is where the execution starts. So I do a public static void main. Now we'll talk about static and non-static methods later, but main is a static method, and I have a string here called args, and inside this what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a complex z1 equals new complex. Now this new keyword is really important because here's what the new keyword does. New keyword, it allocates memory to our object. So all of the objects that we create in Java are basically pointers. So z1 is kind of a pointer to a complex number, but we don't explicitly have pointers in Java, so we just say that z1 is a complex. So the new keyword allocates memory to so if I had just a something like complex z2 here, we'll have z2 which is a complex, but it won't be allocated any memory. So we should always use the new keyword. So it allocates memory. And another tip that I'd like to add here is that if you're getting a null pointer exception in your program, check if you've used new for every object that you've made, and that comes in handy while debugging. So remember that. And what I'm going to do is z1 is going to be 1 plus 2i, so that's my z1. z2 is going to be a new complex with, let's say, just 5, so it'll be just 5 plus 0i, and I'll have a complex z3 which is a new complex with no arguments. And next I'm going to do a z1 dot print, a z2 dot print, a z3.print. And now let's run this program. So what I need to do first is Java C, and I need to do Java C for my complex class. So Java C complex.java, and what this just did was create a complex.class file. So this is my class file right here, and next I'm going to do a Java C test.java, and if I do ls star.class again, I get test.class as well, and next I can do Java test, and there I have it. 1 plus 2i, 5 plus 0i as expected, and 0 plus 0i. So there we go. And another thing I'd like to show you is, let's say I do system.out.println, and I do something like z1.real plus the plus sign and z1.imaginary. Let's just say I do this much, and let's now do Java C test.java. I don't need to compile the complex class again because I made no changes to it. So Java C test.java, and this time it gives me two errors. Real has private access in complex. So because test is a different class from complex, I cannot access something that was private here. So that's just something that I wanted to show. So I think this should be it for our first video, and stay tuned for more.